The Queen has landed, Rhaenyra Targaryen has finally won the Iron Throne, but it came at a heavy price. This episode was a true season finale, and even though there were a few dull moments, questionable writing decisions, and frustrating character choices, I feel this is one of the best episodes in House of the Dragon so far. Last week was all about the spectacle, with the Battle of the Gullet ending in what should have been an emotional gut punch, but I for sure felt a lump in my throat when Rhaenyra unleashed all of her grief. To lose one child is heartbreaking, to lose two is almost world-ending. You guys know I'm a big fan of Emma Darcy, if you catch my drift. Definitely one of the best actors on the show, but this might be Emma's best work so far. Rhaenyra and Daemon are brilliant whenever they are given the right script, but I've struggled to connect to many of the other characters because they feel so paper thin. I get the show has a limited time and it's a large ensemble cast, but I feel many of the actors are wasted. And some of them, the show just doesn't have a clue what to do with. But with Rhaenyra and also Daemon, who you know is my number one guy, I actually care. And I can honestly sit here and say they belong amongst the best of thrones. I would pick up my sword for them and shed a tear for them at the end of all things. So this is pretty much the Season 2 finale, in all but name. The Battle of the Gullet is over, the Dragon Seeds take care of all the loose ends. But just like Corlys, I'm questioning if this is truly a victory. In war, there is very little time to mourn the dead, even that of the Crown Prince. Armies are still gathered across the realm, and dragons are ready to take to the skies. The dance will never be over until the heads of Aegon and Aemond are on spikes. Rhaenyra and Alicent had a plan to peacefully hand over power from the Greens to the Blacks, but Jace's death has changed everything. It's changed Rhaenyra. She's at her lowest, feeling betrayed by not only her council, but those sworn to protect her, and more crucially, her family. I really loved how Rhaenyra called out for Jace and asked, "What have you done?" She was like a mother trying to get the truth out of her son when he's been a very naughty boy. I'm just glad she got to see him one last time and have some sort of closure, unlike with Luke. And everyone is feeling the impact. Rhaena seeks shelter at the Eyrie in the Vale from Lady Arryn with the promise of dragon protection in the form of Sheepstealer. And Rhaenyra has tasked Daemon with finding its rider, but luckily for Rhaena, nobody other than Jace saw her aboard the Wild Dragon. It's clear Rhaena has taken on the role of Nettles, and one day Rhaenyra will find out she is to blame for Jace's death, and Daemon will have to choose between his wife, who he's fully committed to, and will do anything to put on the Iron Throne, or his daughter, who he likely can't even remember the name of. The show has done a very poor job with developing any relationship between Daemon and his daughters. I can't recall one meaningful conversation between them, and they fully expect us to be on board with Daemon's final season arc being this. And what about Rhaena's family on her mother's side? How will the Velaryons deal with this inevitable conflict? Their fleet has been decimated, High Tide has been sacked, but Corlys finally legitimizes Alan. But hey, what about your other son? You know, the one with the dragon? I get it was Alan's moment, but man, he's wasting very little time. Jace's body isn't even cold yet, and the man's moving in on his woman. But we have to come to Alicent, and this is where much of my frustration lies. Alicent visits the men's locker room to try to get the gold cloaks to allow Rhaenyra to take the city peacefully, and she sure gets an eyeful. Anyways, I've always appreciated Alicent. Olivia Cook is one hot mommy, and there are aspects of the character I do like, but I just feel they don't have the material behind her. Honestly, don't know why they had to create that scene. We shouldn't kid ourselves, Westeros isn't a fairy tale land. This happened in Thrones many, many times, and we can only imagine what the small folk had to endure, but I don't know if this was necessary. But it's clear the character of Alicent has gone on an extremely different path than in the book, and I just feel the writers aren't on the same level as George R. R. Martin. And unlike all these badass warriors and dragon riders, it's much harder to write for the Queen Dowager. And honestly, guys, I just can't buy in with Helena. She shows up, says something weird relating to a possible prophecy or future event, and then just disappears. She's more of a plot device than an actual character. She does get a little moment where she commands that no dragon shall be harmed, but I don't think I'm alone in my frustrations with the character. we haven't had a moment with her and Dreamfire after 20 episodes. Basically, the show has a problem with having so many characters with barely any source material, and not enough time and perhaps talent to give them. Basically, if your name is not Rhaenyra, Alicent or Daemon, then you are in trouble. And speaking of Daemon, he's partying with the lads in the Riverlands, celebrating their victory over the Lannisters, but is called back to Dragonstone after the Lord of Drip himself, Sir Simon Strong, brings news of Jace's death. And I do wish we got a better insight into all these relationships. Daemon and Jace had a couple moments, but they left so much on the table. But I did like how we had a few nods to future events concerning Daemon, with everyone's favourite boy, Caraxes, drinking from the God's Eye, and the so-called witch Alice Rivers telling the Rogue Prince never to come back to Harrenhal. Like you, I am anticipating where they go with Alice. She wants Harrenhal, she's always been there, she wants it, but Daemon won't give it to her, won't give it to a bastard wet nurse with no highborn husband. We can all see where this is going, she needs a husband, and enter Aemond Targaryen, who clears house with Vhagar, but gets rather cocky and gets sucker punched in the back, falling to his knees begging Alice for help. In one of the trailers it looks like he gifts her a dragon egg, so it's clear that he will be the highborn husband. But I do fear Aemond will be benched for most of this season and go through his own set of nightmares very similar to his uncle. And what's the bet one of these visions will be a parallel to Daemon's vision of himself looking very similar to Aemond with the eye patch and all that. I can see that happening. Place money on it, guys. Aemond and Daemon are very similar. Even their entrances into the castle were meant to strike a similar note, both heavily armoured up, ready for battle. But unlike Aemond, Daemon showed restraint. Daemon is no angel, but unlike his nephew, he is both light and dark. But I guess his story of Alice has potential, though I am concerned Alice remaining a mystery might be better than whatever the outcome might be. Oh, and yeah, Criston Cole makes a cameo and witnesses Aemond and Vhagar flying towards Harrenhal. I wonder how much he got paid for that appearance, and how can I get that job? But with Aemond out the city, King's Landing is all for the taking. Daemon returns to Dragonstone, puts Hugh and Ulf in their place for abandoning their mission at Harrenhal. Careful though, Daemon, the more you undermine and insult these dudes, the more it could bite you in the ass one day. Now, the whole encounter between Daemon and Mysaria has me very concerned. Their former lovers are clearly going to be fighting to be Rhaenyra's number one, and I don't really care for it. I expect the White Worm to try to cause friction between Daemon and his wife, but after how this episode ended, do we really need that? Do we want that? It's probably all related to Daemon's mission to track down Sheepstealer's rider. Who wants to bet Mysaria somehow learns it was Rhaena and uses that against Daemon, who I think will withhold that information from Rhaenyra. But Daemon is the man. He's back home, convinces Rhaenyra not to let Jace's death be for nothing. It's time to take the Iron Throne, not just for themselves, but for their future. As Daemon reveals his vision of the Song of Ice and Fire, the mysterious silver-haired girl in the desert with dragons at her breast. And I honestly feel Daemon is at his best when he's paired up with Rhaenyra, and it's a two-way street. Both actors are really good friends. You can tell that in all the behind the scenes, all the interviews they do together. They truly work the best when they're on screen together. They bring out the best in each other. They're the ultimate power couple as they take the Red Keep. Daemon strikes down any man that dares stands in their path, but even Daemon Targaryen can't take on a small army by himself. But Daemon's strength goes beyond that of his swordsmanship and his dragon. He is a leader of men. The Gold Cloaks haven't forgotten their commander. They turn their swords onto the High Tower and Queen's Guards. Rhaenyra has won, but it's not an absolute victory until Aegon and Aemond are dead. And of course the third brother, Daeron, which we'll talk about in the next episode. She calls for Aegon the Usurper, but as we saw earlier, he's fled the city with Larys Strong, heading for the coast to get to Essos, get to safety. But Aegon has his own ideas. After a chance escape, he wants to go to Rook's Rest, where he has a garrison loyal to him. Oh, I wonder what he's going to find there. But Larys isn't too keen on that plan. But Larys is a slippery fellow, and I'm liking what they're doing with Larys this season. In the past, they tried to make him as weird as possible with the foot fetish. He's playing both sides. Rhaenyra must have someone's head. Jasper Wilde is offered up to Daemon and he gets it. But Larys has an even better idea. One of his many agents offers Daemon something he's wanted for decades. His secret prisoner, Otto Hightower. who's been in the black cells ever since Larys was tasked by Aemond in bringing the Hand back. Rhaenyra wanted Aegon, but the man who was behind usurping her birthright will more than do. Normally, Daemon does the beheading, but it's time for Rhaenyra not only to pass the sentence, but to swing the sword. She's clearly no warrior like Visenya of old, but she needs to show strength. And I'm glad they didn't turn Rhaenyra into some badass warrior, striking down many men inside the Red Keep. That's a very overdone trope in many other shows and films. I'm glad they made it very obvious that Rhaenyra is no fighter. Rhaenyra does make an arse of it on the first go, but I have seen so many folk complain about the emotion she showed in both the execution of Otto and her ascension off the throne. But that's the whole point. She's just lost her second son. She's not a trained killer. She hates Otto, but he was ever present during her childhood. Anyone that expected her to be a stone-cold killer isn't paying attention. And I am 100% behind how Rhaenyra was handled here. It truly was a powerful moment, perhaps my favourite since her father ascended the very same steps in Season 1 to defend her. And having Alicent witness the aftermath was just the cherry on top. Everything concerning Mr. and Mrs. Targaryen was excellent. When you're not with them, you just want to get back to them. And the seeds have been sown for some exciting events in the future, involving Aemond, Aegon and the new Dragon Riders, but I do expect we will have to wait until the later half of the season for most of the payoffs. This is the true Season 2 finale, and honestly guys, if this is how it ended, then the world would have looked very different in the last 2 years. I just wish the story ended now with Rhaenyra on top. But I guess those expecting a happy ending are just kidding ourselves. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.